In this lesson, we will continue to learn about the battles that were fought in South Carolina. And once again, one of the reasons that there were so many battles fought in this state, which I didn't yet write, was because of the strength and activity of the Loyalists here. I once again will say there were 137 Revolutionary War battles fought here. And the main reason is because of the strength and activity of the Loyalists in South Carolina, why the British turned their attention here in the first place. In the previous lesson, we learned about the Battle of Camden, which was a major defeat for the Continental Army, which of course was part of the Patriot cause. And the significance of this was almost all of South Carolina was controlled by the British. In this defeat, however, it would eventually lead to a victory because the partisans the partisan militia, they fled from the British. However, this would actually be a piece of knowledge that would be used against the British in future battles. Once again, almost all of South Carolina was controlled by the British after the loss of Camden, and the commanders were changed from Horatio Gates to Nathaniel Greene. Now, we learned that Nathaniel Greene understood that there was going to have to be a change in tactics to beat the British, where they're going to have to coordinate with the partisans and fight a defensive mobile war to beat them. We also learned about the Battle of Kings Mountain, which was a victory for the Patriots, mostly Patriot militia made up of mountain men who were sick of the British behavior and the Tory behavior of burning their homes and looting and all the other things they were doing. And they decide to stop it at the Battle of Kings Mountain, and they soundly defeat the British. And due to previous behavior by the British and not allowing Patriots to surrender, they do not allow them to surrender. This, of course, has significance as the turning point in the war because the British begin to retreat from the upcountry. However, soon after, the Battle of Cowpens showed that cooperation of the regular Continental Army and the irregular partisan forces would eventually be the path to Patriot victory. The Battle of Cowpens would be a major victory for the Patriots, and the reason is that they would use the reputation of the partisans of turning tail and running and breaking the ranks to trick the British. The American commander counted on this reputation for his battle plan, and the partisans under the leadership of Andrew Pickens led the attack, then fled the field, tricking the British regulars into thinking that the Americans were retreating. There's Andrew Pickens, the partisan commander, the Wizard Owl. Instead, though, the partisans lured the British forces into the guns of the regular American army. The British were soundly defeated. This was the first time in the war that an American army defeated a force consisting of British regulars, those who were born, trained, and grew up in Britain. This causes the British to retreat to North Carolina. Cornwallis and the British retreat to North Carolina to fight and wait for supplies, eventually moving on toward Virginia, while leaving the remainder of the forces posted in South Carolina to be evacuated or systematically reclaimed by partisan troops and Greene's or Continental forces as they moved toward the coast. This would be the beginning of the end for Cornwallis and the British, because it was at the Battle of Yorktown in Virginia shortly after that it was definitely known that the revolution was going to be in the hands of the Patriots. It was after the Battle of Cowpens that the Patriots had captured many British officers. And this was important because the British were hanging partisan commanders. And that was kind of against the rules of warfare, because you're not supposed to hang prisoners of war. But instead of treating the partisan commanders as equal prisoners of war and officers, if they were a commander, they were treating them as traitors, which could be hung. Well, there was a partisan commander that was hung in Charlestown who was named Colonel Isaac Hayne. And the British, any other colonel, would have been treated with respect and ultimately not hung. However, the British captured him, and instead of treating him as an officer, treated him as a rebel and hung him. Well, this really angered the Patriots, because you're not supposed to hang an officer. So after the Battle of Cowpens, the British lost many officers, and they were in the hands of the Patriots. And Nathaniel Greene, who was the supreme commander of the Continental Army in the South, said that we have your officers now, so if you capture any more of our partisans like you did in 1781, we will go ahead and treat your officers as you are treating ours. So, once again, Isaac Hayne was a partisan commander, and the British hung him as an example. But there would be no more of this once the Patriots had many British officers to more or less hold hostage against this. Now, the final battle in South Carolina was the Battle of Eutaw Springs. I know that doesn't look like Utah as in the state, but that was a Native American word, and that is how it is pronounced. This was the final major battle in the state. There might have been small skirmishes between Patriots and Loyalists, but the final battle was the Battle of Eutaw Springs, and it was a Patriot or Continental Army victory. Now, scholars disagree whether who actually won the battle. They say maybe the Patriots, maybe the Continentals. It was pretty much a tie. However, they all agree on one thing, and that is that the British suffered irreplaceable losses due to this battle. Even though who won is not clear, one thing is clear. The British should not have actually tried to fight and win. They have a name for when you have won a battle but at too great of a cost. Now, the name for when you've won a battle but at too great a cost is called a Pyrrhic victory. We can use this in our own life, and most of us have probably won battles, I mean not physically and violent, but perhaps arguments or things like that, but you had to say something really mean to win, and perhaps you regret saying it because you won it at too great a cost. Now, here's a good example of what a Pyrrhic victory is, pretend there are two men fighting, and the one, he manages to kill the other one, but in the process, he manages to have all four of his arms and legs cut off. So he's like, yay, I won, yay. However, is this person going to be good for any other battle? No, he's going to roll around. So, I won, I killed the other guy, but I just lost all my limbs. So, that's kind of like the British in this battle. They won their victory. However, they lost so much fighting it that they shouldn't have fought it in the first place. It might have been better to retreat. Just like you sometimes, you get in an argument with your parents or friends, it might be better not to fight the battle at all, because to win would be at too great a cost. So, the British also lost officers in this battle, and that contributed to the fact that if the British in other states treat the partisans as traitors, then, you know, we can do the same. This was the last major battle fought in the state. It is commemorated on our state capitol building. And the significance of this battle, just like all the other battles, it has major significance, is this marks the demise of the Southern Campaign for the British. So after the Battle of Eutaw Springs, the war in the South is over. And shortly thereafter would be the Battle of Yorktown, which would be the final major battle of the Revolution. As was said before, there was a partisan parolee, Colonel Isaac Hayne, that was captured near Charlestown in July of 1781. The British decided to stem the tide of Patriot progress by making his fate an example. After a brief trial, Hayne was hanged as a traitor to the crown. Greene immediately issued a proclamation stating that he would retaliate, and after the Battle of Eutaw Springs, he had enough British officers as prisoners to ensure that no more executions would take place. So I mistakenly told you after Cowpens, but it was actually after Eutaw Springs, which is hardly relevant to your learning. Still, the same thing occurred. The Battle of Eutaw Springs was neither the last of the 137 battles fought in the state, nor a technical victory, because of the unsoldierly plundering behavior of the hungry and nearly without clothes Continentals. The irreplaceable British troop losses, though, made it strategically the final major battle in the beleaguered state. So, I forgot this part about unsoldierly behavior by the Continentals. Eutaw Springs was viewed as a Pyrrhic victory for the British because it marked the clearance of the British from the battleground state and region, with the exception of a few coastal enclaves that were finally evacuated after Yorktown. And during the peace proceedings in 1782, this marked the demise of the British Southern Campaign. At most, newly minted Americans patriotically viewed the battle as a victory because of its positive tactical results. This can be seen both in the striking of a commemorative medal and the commission of a tribute door panel of the Capitol building in the early years of the new republic. So we covered many battles. I'm going to review them because it is hard to keep them all straight. The first battle that we covered was the Battle of Saratoga, fought in New York, which would have significance because it was a turning point in the war which caused the French to join the Patriot cause. The other battle that we covered was the Battle of Sullivan's Island, which was fought in the Charleston Harbor, and this is where the Patriots won a victory due to the success of the Palmetto Log Fort. The next battle we covered was a Patriot loss, the Battle of Charlestown, fought in 1780. This was significant because the British were able to blockade and keep supplies out of Charlestown and South Carolina. The next battle we learned about was the Battle of Camden, which was a major defeat for the Continental Army because they tried to fight the British as the British fought, going out and fighting in an open field using conventional warfare, firing volleys back and forth and hoping your lines do not break. This has the significance as after the Battle of Camden, almost all of South Carolina would be controlled by the British. After the loss of Camden comes the Battle of King Mountain, which would be a success for the Patriots. This was because the Patriot Mountain men stood up to the British and Tory forces, and this causes the British to retreat from the upcountry. This is known as a turning point because of that fact. A major Patriot victory was the Battle of Cowpens. This is one of the most famous battles in the state. The significance of this battle was the British began to retreat to North Carolina, and that this is the first time that the Patriots defeat mostly British regulars. Of course, this battle was made possible by the coordinations of the Continental Army and the partisans, which tricked the British into a ambush on the other side of a hill, out way up here, almost on the North Carolina border, near Greenville. The final major battle in the war, which causes the demise of the Southern campaign, was the Battle of Eutaw Springs. This, even though it was doubtful who won, is at best a Pyrrhic victory for the British, because it was a battle that was fought at too great a cost. Also at this battle, another reason it was fought at too great a cost was because the officers that were lost to the Patriots, which could be used as more or less ransom against the British treating Continental officers as traitors as they had done in the past. This, of course, is remembered on the Capitol building, and it's one of the last of the major battles fought in the state. After this, there were still minor battles between British and Tories, or between Tories and Patriots, part of the Civil War that was fought in the state. But this was the last major battle fought in the state of South Carolina. After the Battle of Eutaw Springs, the British retreat to the north, and eventually the last major battle that occurs in the Revolution is in Yorktown, where the French, which joined the Patriot cause at the Battle of Saratoga, are waiting for the British to stop their retreat back over to England. And that was important because the Continental Army had very little navy. In the next lesson, we'll learn about the beginning of the new United States of America, the first time that it could be called a country, and about the first governments of the new U.S. Until then, thank you for listening. I hope you did well.